Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this third Women in Tech conference that we are organizing under the hashtag Huawei for Her. I repeat, hashtag Huawei and number 4 for her. Huawei for her. Why do I say this? Because this will be the hashtag that will be used throughout the event. And with this hashtag, you can write us on Twitter and tell us, all your comments, all your questions, and everything you want to share with us and with the speakers. So hashtag Huawei for her. Now, it's been more than 3 months since we started this series. A series that aims to give space and a voice to women so that they can share their experience with others and also inspire more and more women and girls to join technology-related careers. Well, a lot has happened, obviously, during these 3 months for us, for you, and for humanity as a whole. For the first time in history, every person in this planet has undergone a similar experience at the same time. We are talking, about lockdowns, we are talking about confinement, about loneliness, and in many cases also about loss, sadly. It has not been easy. I will not lie to you. It has not been easy, neither for us, neither I guess for you. Well, COVID-19, I think, has taught us many, many lessons. But one of them, which I think it's fundamental, is that technology is essential in our lives. We have seen it. We need technology to work. We need technology to talk with our loved ones in another country or in another city, even at the other side of the street, right? When there were times in some countries that we couldn't leave the house. So this is now key to improve our health systems, our working conditions even, and our collective experience as a society. We need technological progress. There's no question. We need to make technology accessible for every worker, for every family, and for every business across the world, because we are all in this together. It doesn't matter if we in Europe have, good connectivity, as long as in other parts of the world they don't have it either. So this is one of Huawei's main goals, right? And this is what we call tech for all, so technology for all. Now, I can also tell you that this goal is not going to be fulfilled while half of the world's talent is basically still waiting to be unlocked, right? Women make up half of the population, yet the representation in the technology and science sector is still very low. Just so that you know what I'm talking about. It is estimated that only 2 out of 10 people working in tech are women. So 2 out of 10. Obviously, even visually, it's a lot. So indeed, we have reasons to be concerned and to want to step up our efforts to advance equality within the sector, as this will be one of the ways to obviously make society as a whole advance towards full equality in the digital era. So now we arrive at the main point. This is why we obviously need to speak about the need of attracting more women to this sector. This is what we are doing now, of course. We also need to discuss ways of retaining female talent within the tech industry, because also, as data shows, even if they take up tech-related jobs, women have a much higher probability of dropping out, of leaving their careers after having children. I think this is obvious for all of us. That is why, actually, we wanted to talk about Finland's example today. It is true. You could have told me, okay, Berta, why didn't you choose Sweden, or why didn't you choose Denmark? We could have chosen either. Like there's no concrete reason, but it is also true that Finland was the first country in the world to grant women full political rights, and this was more than 100 years ago. That's why we also wanted, in this sense, to learn from Finland's example. I can also tell you that Finland ranks 3rd worldwide in the Global Gender Gap Report, and it is recognized as the 2nd best country globally to be a girl. Obviously, when we are talking that, education is so important to attract future women to tech, it is also very important to be in a safe environment, to be a girl, and to be able to learn. But in Finland, gender equality is also contributing to the country's prosperity. We're talking about affordable childcare, about adequate parental leave, and a commitment to helping parents achieve a good work-life balance. This is what allows women to fully participate in the Finnish workforce. And I have also learned from my Finnish peers that for Finland, equality is almost like a national pride, right? So this is also what we need to cheer. But without any due delay, let me introduce you our speakers. So in this conference, I have the pleasure to be accompanied first and foremost by Henna Virkkunen. Henna Virkkunen is a Finnish politician serving as a member of the European Parliament since 2014. In this role, she has worked in several dossiers that have been key for the development of Europe's technological ecosystem. Prior to coming to Brussels, she served as a Minister of Public Administration in Finland. Then we also have Carle Hameri. I hope I am saying that correctly. Carle Hameri, as the Chancellor of the University of Helsinki, he's in charge of promoting science and scholarship and the university's community relations, as well as of overseeing the institution's interests and activities. He's also a professor of aerosol physics. And I have to tell all our participants that Carle is going to be the first male speaker of this Huawei for Her series. And you will ask me, okay, Berta, so why? And I will tell you, well, there is a reason for that. Or if you want, there are two reasons for this. So on the one hand, throughout this series, we have sought in a way and will continue seeking to give significantly more space to women. As the case is normally the opposite in other events you see here in Brussels, and I am sure that also beyond, you look at the panels and almost all of them are male dominated. Some even don't have any women, which is actually very sad. Okay, but so this is why we have prioritized, if you want, including women in our panels. But then at the same time, we believe, and I want to be very, very clear on this, that for change to happen, the society as a whole has to believe in it, right? So all of us, and not only women, need to want gender equality to be a reality rather than something to just continuously, strive for and see it like as a thing for the future. So this is why it is so important for women and for men to be involved in the equality debate. And this is also why I think that Carle's perspective is going to highly enrich our discussion today. So welcome, Carle, and thank you again for accepting our invitation. Now, our third speaker is, also I hope I will say this correctly, Katja Toropainen. So Katja is the founder of Inclusive, a nonprofit that promotes diversity and inclusion in working life. She's also an angel investor, an award-winning public speaker, and a writer. And prior to founding Inclusive, Katja was actually involved in the global startup technology and venture capital scene. So in 2018, she was recognized, and listen to this, as one of the 100 most influential figures of the Nordic startup and technology scene. And last but not least, joining me also from Brussels is Lucia Klestinkova. She's a member of the Equality Task Force of the Commissioner for Equality, Helena Dalli, and also an assistant to the Director for Competitiveness of the European Commission. Besides her role as an EU official, Lucia is a podcast host, a coach, and also the voice of femininity in Europe, as she likes to define herself. Lucia has also run in the last European elections, gathering the support of almost 15,000 voters in her home country, Slovakia. So also congratulations for that, Lucia. Now, before moving on to the panel discussion, let me quickly update the participants, or if you want, just explain briefly the rules of procedure. So like I said, everyone who is not speaking, who is not one of the speakers, please keep your, well, obviously your microphone off so that the sound doesn't interfere, and also your camera off. And whenever we arrive to the Q&A session, then I will ask you to kindly turn on your camera. Okay, so When we go to the Q&A session, very easy. First of all, we will put our screen in not full screen mode, okay? So we will make it little. This will allow us to see the raise your hand button. Okay, so when we want to ask a question, we press raise hand. Remember not to have the screen in full screen mode, otherwise you don't see it. Okay, so we press raise hand, and then we wait for me to actually give you the floor. Obviously, many people will probably be asking questions. I will try my best to take all of them. Last time we had the chance to take all the questions, so this time should not be any more difficult than that. I will give you the floor. And then please kindly introduce yourself. You can mention your full name and your organization so that we all know who are we speaking with. I think that's nice when we are like in this, more closed and familiar environment, if you so wish. And then you keep your question brief so that we all can speak, and then that's perfect. We go. Okay, so we have arrived at the panel discussion. I need to know whether Henna is present because I think that she might have had some troubles. So Henna, if you are around, please say hi or something.
Yes, I am here. Yeah, I wasn't on the line all the time, but now I am, and I think the sound is okay and so on. Yeah.
Yes, we hear you perfectly. That's wonderful. Good. Okay. So my first question goes for you, if that's okay. So Henna, Finland has been a pioneer in gender equality. And every year, as we said before, ranks among the countries with the highest equality indicators worldwide. Now, I ask you, as a former minister and also, as a Finnish woman who has been in politics for quite some time, what has been the key to Finland's success? And also, most importantly, what can the private sector and especially the technology industry learn from the policies implemented in Finnish public administration?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's very, very important topic. And of course, in Finland, we are also very proud of that we think that we are front runners in equality, but still we also have work to do. But I think the most important basis for the equality is that we have very long tradition on that, because as you might know, Finland was the first country to grant women full political rights in 1906. So it means that for more than 100 years now, women have had active role in a working life and also in decision making. And I think it's the most important basis for that why we have also so much female in the digital sector and why they are so active in the working life. And I think also in Finland we are we see that education is very important tool for our society. So we have also very long traditions in there that we have been investing in human resources, and we think that it's very important that all the people, they have equal opportunities, and we have been investing in education for a long time, and also that has been supporting girls and women, of course, a lot. But like I said, we still have also challenges ahead of us, and one of the challenges in Finland is that even that our females, they are more educated than men nowadays, and they are very important part of our working force. We still have very segregated working markets, job market. It means that we still have to encourage girls and women to choose more ICT topics at schools, and also to study that at the universities and in vocational training. So we still have to encourage them to also choose a little bit different jobs, what is maybe traditional. And what industry and private sector can learn from that, I think the most important thing is that we have to really work for that we are encouraging girls and women. And I think also in the working life, we should more pay attention for the diversity. That it's very good, I think, opportunity for all the working places if you have people from very different backgrounds, if you have men and women and who are coming from the different cultures. And I think we should see that it's big opportunity, and that is something we should also, I think, encourage the industries to do, to pay attention for the diversity of the people who are working there.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Hannah, for these views. It is indeed very, very important that you were mentioning education, because this is going to be indeed our next point. Let me now go to Carle, like kind of throw the ball here in this field that you have now open. Carle, I would like to ask you, because, you know, Finland has done obviously quite a good job in attracting women to the so-called STEM education programs, right? So science, technology, engineer, and mathematics. However, in Europe as a whole, we're still not using the full potential of society, as also Hannah was mentioning, as in many places, female talent is still largely missing from these subjects. So in your view, Carle, what is preventing girls from choosing to study STEME? And, you know, what can we do better to inspire female students and researchers to pursue careers in these fields?
Thank you for the question. And also I'd like to thank for inviting me to this panel. And I'm really happy to be the first male panelist in your series. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, your question is very good and deep. As Henna described earlier, and as we know, Finland has done a lot of work in promoting equal opportunities, independent of gender or any background. But still, even in our society, we see differences. And a big question is should we accept the differences, and where do they come from? It is quite obvious and clear that each child, each young person or grown-up person has their own personal priorities and focuses. But then we have the family, we have the society around us, which is also shaping our future. And for some reason, even if the actual possibilities are similar, we see differences in where do the young girls or young boys go to. And why is it still so, even in Finland, that the STEM topics are very much for men and not so much for girls in reality? And I see one of the reasons, there are big discussion around this, but one of the reasons is that there is a study showing that boys trust more on themselves. They overestimate their talent, while girls underestimate their talent. So the girls are critical, unnecessarily critical towards studying subjects like mathematics or physics, and the boys overestimate and they take it more easily. So the end result is that the girls who take the risk and take the hard topics like mathematics, they end up doing better in the final examination because they are a selective population of girls. They are sort of the better end of the population of girls, while the boys are more of the general level of boys who are doing statistically a little bit not so good. And this results that you have different opportunities to go to the higher education and in your work life. And the big question is, why do the girls and the boys do these selections? Why do they overestimate or underestimate? And one big reason is maybe that they get a wrong signal. They have to make selections early in their school years before they finally get enough testing to realize that actually I am good, I can do it. If you already made the selection and you later on start to realize that actually I'm pretty good, but you made a wrong selection. You can't change it anymore. So the girls should get early enough in their school years signals from the students, from the families, from the teachers that you are good, you are equally good, or you are very good, and be brave. Take this, take your challenge. And it is very much the higher education, the university duty also to give this message down, because we have to influence the way the schools prepare the coming students.
Thank you so much, Carle, for your words. I think it's very important what you're mentioning, and probably Lucia, as she's a coach. Sorry, this word was very popular in Spain like a few years ago, and then it faded away from our vocabulary, and now it's like, you know, from the from the last century. But I think it's pretty much related to like self-esteem, right, and to self-awareness. So that's definitely something to touch upon later, if you so wish, because it is true, when your own perceptions are influencing your career choices, then obviously we have a problem there. Okay, so now from education, we are gonna move to jobs, if that's okay. And we are gonna go to Katja now. So Katja, you're a woman, like I said before. Well, not only you have received so many awards, and this is true, but you also have extensive experience in the global tech industry and startup scene. You come from Finland, but you have worked in many different environments. I recall you saying that you worked in the US, also in the EU. So you have, I think, a very global view. So in this sense, what do you think, what are the obstacles in the workplace preventing us from moving to a fully inclusive paradigm?
Thank you, Bertan. I agree with you what you said earlier, that this is such an important topic as technologies are nowadays in every industry and touch our lives, whether it's around communications, health, food, mobility, or whatever. So this is so important topic, and I agree with Henna that we should be understanding diversity in an ever more broad way. And coming from Finland, I agree there's so many things we can learn from this society, and there's many things that are great and really inclusive. What is interesting in the point of view of the technology industry, that this industry is such a global and internationally connected industry, is that when you look at the data, you can see same kind of diversity issues in many parts of the world. And here in Europe, we still also, and in the Nordics, we have a lot to do in terms of technology industry to make it more diverse and more equal, also in terms of gender equality. In fact, in Europe still, for example, 92% of all capital is going to startups with all male teams, which means that from this pool, the next big tech companies are going to grow, and we already can see that it's not going to be very, very diverse. And the reason why we have so much to work on in the tech industry is that there has been many things in the history of technology that have gone wrong, and that's why there's very structural problems and structural barriers, like structural sexism, racism, and other forms of discrimination, or then barriers, for example, lack of role models and lack of representation that might in fact prevent girls and women seeing themselves as the next tech executives, investors, or tech entrepreneurs. And one of the key things is exactly that, as there is this sort of diversity depth, it leads to these kind of stark stereotypes, and these leads to biases. For example, when I'm talking about a CEO or about an investor or about a coder, most people might think about a white man due to these stereotypes. And these stark stereotypes might actually shape who can see themselves in these positions and affect our recruiting decisions as well. So we should really learn more about our unconscious biases, how vulnerable we're for creating these dark stereotypes in our minds, and how this might lead us to unconsciously make unrational recruiting decisions, or lead to a phase where we might, if like people who are minorities in the tech industry might not see themselves in these leadership positions. And one example about the biases is that, for example, a research done in Sweden and published in Harvard Business Review shows how this plays in action in the startup and technology industry. Due to biases, for example, investors who evaluated startup entrepreneurs, they tended to see tech entrepreneurs who are men as young and promising, while they saw tech entrepreneurs who were women as young but inexperienced. And these are examples of unconscious biases. And to really dismantle these kind of structural problems and barriers, a lot of action, concrete action and resources are needed. And we also don't only need more women to join the tech industry, but we also need to make sure that women and other minorities who are already working in the technology industry are treated equally, and then can thus stay there and make progress in their careers. And this leads to a point of what to do. And like the optimistic or the good thing is that there's already a lot of research and knowledge and data about also how to make things better and what to do. And these are diversity inclusion best practices. So when we're just ready to learn about these best practices and start taking more action and commit more resources into these matters, we can actually change things for the better.
I believe so, Katja. Thank you so much. And it is also, I think it is very important. You were talking about role models. Well, I will share a very brief story with the audience, because I think it is very revealing. You see, when I would say around like 5 years old, maybe 5 or 6 years old, you know, in the school, we were starting to play, no, outside, the boys and the girls and so on. And it was very revealing, because like the boys will play football, like, you know, football players, right? And the girls in my class, we were the nurses, right? So every time that a boy fell, we would like take care of him. And it is very shocking, because like as I grew up, then I realized, you know, I used to see the girls in the high school, and they were all playing football themselves, right? In football teams and so on. And I was like, okay, you see, they are like my role models. I also want to be a football player. And as you can imagine, like then the class I was growing up with, all the girls, when we started seeing that this was possible and that there was, for example, a football league for us, and we could also play well, we many of us joined. And actually, well, I was not Cristiano Ronaldo, let me tell you, but at least, you know, this it makes you feel that it is possible, that you can also play, that it's not only the boys and then you have to be you know, taking care of them, with all due respect, obviously, for people who do. The important thing, I think, is to have a broad range of options and know that as a girl, you can do anything you want. You can be a football player. Like in my team, we had amazing players. Not myself again, but yeah, so it is possible. I think it is very good to keep this in mind. I see also a lot of students are in this call, so always keep that in mind. You can be whatever you want to become. It's as simple as that. You just work towards your goal, you will reach it. Okay, after this little advertisement, then we go to Lucia. Lucia, so let's talk about history here as well with you, because you see, for the first time in history, we have a woman leading the European Commission. This is really well, it's not breaking news, but it is definitely a turning point in our history. And we also have a commissioner fully dedicated to advancing equality in the EU. Also, this is for the first time. But could you explain us, maybe the audience, could you explain what exactly is the Commission doing to make sure that the digital era is also the equality era here in Europe?
It's a very good question. Thank you very much. And it's an honor to be following up on all these great speakers, because I think that's totally in the DNA of what we're doing in the European Commission, trying to also leverage the great example that some of the member states can have in whatever policy area we're looking at, how to leverage that for the other member states which are somehow lagging behind. And so it's a great question to ask, because of course the digital era is not an era of equality. And it cannot be if we see 1 in 3 women experiencing violence, if 55% of women say they've experienced sexual violence, and we know that a lot of it is more likely to happen to women online than it is likely to happen to men. If, as Katja mentioned, the funding goes to male teams, if there's less than 8% female CEOs, all of these are the numbers which are sometimes the invisible iceberg, sometimes it's a bit more visible, like the 16% pay gap, for instance, that we have in the EU, all of which is basically painting the picture of where is the engagement that we should be looking at. And so we've seen the examples happening in all areas of the society. And as you're saying, we are now in the historical moment where the European Commission for the first time ever has been given this political mandate, obviously with the President Ursula von der Leyen, with the Commissioner Helena Dalli being appointed to be exclusively in charge of equality agenda, which is the first time ever in history. And so maybe some of you, if you're following this topic, you've noticed that in March this year, the Commission adopted its gender equality strategy, which is a big political achievement for us, because it outlines the roadmap that we will be working on in the next, in these 5 years of this mandate. And the scope is really broad. It goes from, as I was saying, violence, a lot of which happens also in the online space, and we might go into it. We've already touched upon a little bit on the structured sexism also. Then it's the equal access to opportunities across all sectors of the society, so that women can fully use their talent. We know that 85% of purchasing decisions globally are impacted by women. So let's think about how this translates into competitiveness of European businesses. If we know that they do not use the intellectual capital, the values, the way of thinking that women represent, if we don't use that in the ways we design products and services, then the strategy looks obviously also at the numbers game, as the pay gap, pensions gap, and then we also dig deeper into areas which are more relevant for the digital domain that we're looking at today, such as skills, the access to STEM degrees, stereotypes, biases, promoting online entrepreneurship, etc., etc. There's a lot, and all of it is somehow very interconnected, so it's difficult to go into one of these areas, but I think it's as you're saying, important to have this conversation and manage to move the best practices from one area of society to another, and also work at all levels, as Carla was mentioning, working with academia, working with businesses that Katja is representing, and also looking at Hannah's phase, I'm thinking about another number, which is 39% of members of the European Parliament, which are women. So again, we're not representative in politics either. So that's also a big field to be looking at. What is the gender equality that is being ensured in all kinds of decision making that we're doing in politics and in business, to make sure that the society is equally represented.
Indeed. Thank you, Lucia. Political representation is one of the keys, right? They say, well, if there is no diversity or representation in the room where they are making the decisions, obviously, then these decisions are not going to be, diverse enough in that sense. They are not going to tackle this issue as well as a diverse panel would do, for instance. Okay, so now from the European Commission, we go all the way down to the street. We go to the European Parliament. So the European Parliament always, everyone here is talking. You see, it's in the news sometimes it's not. It's sometimes because a speech that the politician made or whatever. But actually, people, I think, know very little about what it does. So actually, I think it's a privilege that we have Hannah with us with us today, who, as I said in the beginning, is a member of the European Parliament, one of the 39% that Lucia was also mentioning. And so, Henna, I wanted to ask you, so the European Parliament has become, I would say, a leading institution when it comes to legislating the digital era. So in this context, could you tell us what is the European Parliament doing to advance gender equality in relation to technology? Or alternatively also, what can it do better if it's not doing enough? What's your view?
Yeah, thank you. It's very important topic when we are speaking about competitiveness of European Union, that we really have all the talented people and we can also encourage them to use their ideas and talent they have. And digital economy, it has been one of the priorities for the Commission during the last years and also for the Parliament. So we have been doing a lot for creating one digital single market. And now when we are speaking about the recovery package and recovery plan for Europe, I think you have recognized that the digital economy will be top priority there together with the Green Deal and decarbonization. And it's interesting to see now if we are looking all the member states and how advanced they are when we are looking at their digitalization. Those member states which are really front runners in digitalization, we can see also that the female participation is the highest there also in the ICT sector. So it tells that it really goes hand in hand when the females are active in ICT sector, then the ICT sector is also successful and society is digital. So I think it's important for all the member states to recognize it. And also we know that if we can increase the women's participation in our job market, it has been estimated that more women in digital jobs could create an annual 16 billion GDP boost in the European Union. So it has a big part of our economy and in our recovery also, that we can encourage women's participation. But really when we speak about the participation, I think the education has an important role here. And of course it's a competence of the member states. So European Union can't make decisions on the education, what kind of educational system different member states have. But anyway, we can give recommendations for the member states and we can also share best practices. And that's what we have been doing. We have been enhancing digital skills among girls and women, and we have been promoting female employment in the ICT sector, and also we have been raising awareness on education and vocational training, that how important it is, like we were speaking earlier about the STEM sector as a whole. And like Katja was mentioning earlier, it's really important that we have role models also in this sector. So we have, for example, EU prize for women innovators, and I think it's very important we have also that kind of prizes, and we can also promote those role models we have. But we have also legislation, of course, and it has an important role, especially when we are speaking about the work-life balance. It's often obstacle for women in the working life, and we just in last year we were adopting the work-life balance directive, and its idea is to tackle the problem of uneven care duties. It's very important that the women can participate in the job life and working life, that we have also equality there, how we are taking care of care duties. But then now we are having a new commission, like it was said, and we have also a new gender equality strategy, and we are working on that also in the Parliament. And we are going to have a new digital education action plan, and I think just today Commission was publishing it's for public consultation, this digital education action plan, and I think it's having important role now when we are going to promote more digital education for skills, because also Commission was promising in their gender equality strategy that this new education action plan will address the gender gap in ICT studies. And this strategy was published today for the open discussion and a public consultation. And I think it's important that now all the stakeholders are also giving their ideas for Commission and for the Parliament that what could be done. So I think we have been paying attention for that more and more in last years in the European level, but more actions has to be done. And it's really crucial for our economy also, as we know. So I think this is something which is really waking up also the member states. And during the Corona crisis, I think everybody has realized now how important the digital economy is for us and all the digital services. And we know how important they are in our everyday life. And of course, then we get better services if we have more diverse people who are creating these new services.
Indeed, Henna, thanks a lot. I hope that has given participants, a very clear view of how like the EU works, right? Because normally, obviously, it's difficult if you are not from the sector to spot, what is the Commission doing, what is the Parliament. So I think you did a very good job there by explaining, how these consultations work, how the job is done, how the Parliament participates, and so on. So thank you for that. And now I am going to go back to Carle, actually. And well, I think that here another important issue in terms of gender equality is leadership, right? I think this is very clear for us. So the job will not be completed until there is balance at the highest levels. One could say that this is already happening, obviously, with more women, reaching leadership positions, for example, in academia. But I wonder if the speed is right. So are we being too slow in making this change happen? I mean, what can we learn from the Finland example in this sense, Carle?
I think we can learn a lot. But first of all, if I think of the academic life as a whole, as a career, the typical endpoint is a professor position. If you are successful, if you want to stay in the business. And the fraction of females in professor positions has been increasing steadily, being about 1/3 over all disciplines, over all the universities in Finland. The trend is clear. It's a right trend. The fraction is increasing, but the pace is too slow. It's far too slow. 20 years ago, I heard the arguments that while the academic life back in the 1950s and so on was mainly for men, the situation in the late 90s was a result of that culture. But it will change as soon as we come to a modern equal society. But the pace is too slow. I think it should have happened already by now. So I think there are, we have to look this more carefully, and many studies have identified that there are problems in two ways. The women themselves do not apply for the highest positions as eagerly as the men do, at least within academia. And secondly, even if they apply, they are not selected as much as the male. So now we ask, why do they not apply, and why do they not become selected? And here are clearly the problems. And I think at least within the STEM sector as a whole, which is more familiar to me, and talking about the digitalization issue, there is still sort of what we call a Hercules culture, sort of a rumor spreading around that if you come to this business, you have to work and work and work. You work long hours, no vacations, and the whole signal is that this is not for somebody wanting to have a balanced life, wanting to have a family. And considering the structure of the society, I think it's more the message towards females: do not enter. It is also a message to many males that do not enter. This is not a healthy work environment. I mean, it essentially, finally, it is not that bad when you are in there. You can work normal work hours. You can choose your style and be productive, not sacrificing all the rest of your life. But the message is wrong. And I think that this is something we have to change. And at the same time, we have to show good role models. Henna was talking about the role models earlier, and I think we have to show good role models to the younger generation. Whether it's a male who takes a parental leave or takes care of the afternoon activities of the children, or whether it's a female who shows that I can work hard as well and have a family, or decide not to have a family. I can independently make the decisions, and both sort of role models, the whole variability needs to be there. And last short notice, within academia, it's very clear that if the diversity is there, the groups are stronger. They are more productive. This is studied. The more diverse research communities are much more productive than sort of a monoculture communities. So it's clear that we have to head there.
Thanks a lot, Carle. While you're speaking, I am receiving a lot of messages actually saying how interesting it is actually, right, to hear a man talking about role models. Is actually very inspiring, because indeed you are making, I think, a very good point. Role models don't have to be, just women showing that they can work super hard outside the house. It also has to be that men can work inside the house, right? An important role model is also a man, like putting the washing machine and cooking. I think that's also a very, very important role model. So you have made a very, very good point there. The audience is really engaged. Now, okay, so let's take it back to Katja. Katja, when we last spoke, you sounded, I have to say, quite optimistic, you see, because even though the picture does not look, let's say, quite good at the moment, there are a lot of things that we can do to foster inclusivity and diversity within the tech sector and the digital society as a whole. So could you share maybe with us some of what we could call best practices that we could, that could be implemented both in SMEs and also in big companies?
Yeah, sure. And before going to that, I actually got inspired by Carle's words about research as well, and going to touch on those as well. For example, some studies show that why women don't apply to the leadership positions, it's also partly due to the structural sexism that makes women less confident to apply those. Then there's also other, like often these barriers can be even a bit invisible, like gender job descriptions, or if the leadership teams are non-diverse, some people just don't see themselves there. So there's multiple barriers, but there's actually already a lot of studies and best practices how to tackle those as well. We just need to pay more attention to that. And then when it comes to the thing that women are not that often selected in these positions, there's also studies that show that there's biases in the play as well. While sometimes men are evaluated based on their potential and performance, studies show that sometimes women and people of color are, instead of evaluating their performance, their personality or some other different kind of factors might be evaluated due to the stereotypes and biases. So we need to pay a lot more attention into our own biases, but also biases in our processes, whether it's recruiting, promotion, and these sort of topics. And what excites me is that diversity and inclusion is such a broad topic under the umbrella of sustainability. And it's exciting because it actually touches the whole organization and every employee. And there's best practices that can advance not only the inclusion of women, but the inclusion of everyone, all the employees, and even more vulnerable minorities included. And there's various best practices from leadership to work culture to product development to marketing communications to recruiting and so forth. So we should also understand that it's just not for human resources, for instance, but there's a lot of various kind of best practices that can be taken into action in any function a person works at. And something I see that is important to highlight here is that we still need to learn more about what diversity and inclusion mean. We need to understand diversity in a more broad and intersectional way. There is plenty of different diversity aspects, whether it's demographic, experiential, or cognitive differences. And then there might be even overlapping, or there are overlapping diversity aspects that make this even more complex. And then as inclusion means feeling psychological safety and being treated equally, we also need to learn more about what is inclusive work cultures, what is inclusive leadership, how to advance that. And there's actually all the time something that is exciting is that there's all the time more research. For example, just in May, McKinsey published their diversity research that they've been publishing for many years already. And for the first time, inclusion was that strong in the research. And their finding was that even diverse organizations should be paying much more attention into inclusion and how to advance that. And a couple of ways to advance inclusion is that everyone, leaders and everyone in the organizations are committed to learning more about diversity and inclusion and advancing it. Also that the organization is committed to learning about biases and deconstructing these biases in various processes in the organization. And also that we just understand our differences and are kind of open, empathetic, and also vulnerable and humble, and understand that people have different experiences. And when we learn about inclusive leadership, we can learn to be better leaders, colleagues, teammates, and understand each other better. And some maybe first helpful first steps to teams or organizations are, for example, organizing diversity inclusion basics training within the organization and trainings about unconscious biases. And also more and more companies are conducting a diversity inclusion audit or survey to figure out what's the state of diversity and inclusion, and also what are the next focus points or goals, where should they improve. But the most important thing to drive the change is to also get the leadership to commit to this.
I fully agree with you, Katja. Thank you so much. I think it's not enough, obviously, when only the employees want to, have true equality and diversity. If the leadership is not involved, then there's no point, obviously. That's why I actually feel, very proud of being a part of the Huawei family, because increasingly by the day, you can notice the commitment was there from the very beginning, but it grows by the day, right? Because we foster a lot the dialogue between, male and female employees, and you can see how, even those who were less concerned about this, not because they disregarded it, but because they didn't have sufficient information, are growing more and more convinced by the day. Yes, we need to do this. Yes, we need to, push our women to top positions, to positions of leadership. We need to recruit more women, and that's obviously very, very enriching. So I think an organization becoming aware of what they have to do, right? It's the first step. So thank you for that. Okay, so now we are reaching the end of our panel. We are very soon gonna move to our questions. But so the last goes to Lucia. Lucia, I told you will be closing the panel. So here it comes. So you frequently say that every job is an ICT job these days, right? It's a view, obviously, which I fully agree. Everything is digital in one way or another. However, still, not even half of these jobs are done by a woman. So what do you think that is keeping women professionally away from tech? Does the current makeup of the online ecosystem, and here I am obviously mostly referring to social media, play a role in relation to which jobs we choose for ourselves?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And I'm thinking how to most intelligently answer to the why question, because I really have the impression that we've been discussing this for years, and maybe some more senior people for decades, and it feels like the advancement hasn't been there. So we've touched upon so many of the reasons so far of this vicious circle of stereotypes. Biases that we are educated with since we're small, and then the absence of a good quality career advisory in schools, which then puts the girls and boys into further boxes, which then prevent them for jumping into the more probably non-typical career path. Then is the absence of the role models, which in my view is not just a question of role models, but the true career sponsors, people who really hold your back and who pull you further. Because listening to all these stories of Cheryls and Marisas on the other side of the ocean is very exciting, but when it's not relatable enough, when it's not a woman that you can go for coffee who can really give you targeted advice and support you in looking for that next job opportunity, or helping you growing your business further, or raising that funding, it's really gonna stay as slow as it is. So very often, although I'm always speaking on behalf of the regulator, of the policy-making body of the EU, I'm always kind of trying to invite us to consider what is our individual roles in all of this, because the policies are there, the frameworks are there, we're spending a lot of money on all kinds of grants, are doing awards and trying to do online campaigns to promote and advance the progress. But I think it's really extremely important that every one of us shows up in support of the issue. And it can be in holding somebody accountable when we see harassment. It can be asking our friends and colleagues about their recruitment practices and exactly as much they have invested into working with their biases. It's engaging in online conversations. Yeah, and that's where your question about social media comes in, where I think it's one of the tricky parts of the advancement of the women in tech, where tech is there allowing us to have bigger access to opportunities, but at the same time, it's holding so many women back from showing up simply because of the communication culture that's happening out there. We've seen, maybe Hannah can share that or not later, we've seen research confirming the massive extent to which women politicians are targets of threats and harassment. And this is, again, just the tip of the iceberg. Myself, I was running in the campaign last year, and ever since, whenever I post anything on social media, and it can be a harmless post about an invitation to an event like this, the avalanche of attacks that I received there, it really takes a lot of individual mastery and support of your community, which supports you in flowing through that effort to bring out certain kind of career path or product or service or whatever you're trying to communicate online. And so, yes, I think it's really important that we are much more conscious of how much risk comes with it, and then we invest in the individual abilities of the women who are trying to show up more in the social media space, to give them the tools and the capabilities to deal with it. And this then applies to entrepreneurs, politicians, journalists also. The European Commission launched a big campaign last year hashtag digital respect for her, where again we're trying to bring attention to this and kind of make people aware that there should be zero tolerance to this online and offline, but we're not there yet, and we're not going to be if not every single person doesn't show up every single day whenever we're scrolling down and seeing something that we wouldn't want to be seeing, or also if we see somebody trying to do great stuff, supporting them and cheering them for her.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, because it is true, you know, when I think, of course, men experience this as well. But when you're a woman and when you post something that someone disagrees with, they immediately attack you in another way, right? It's not a disagreement. They attack you in just a personal way. Like, oh, what do you think? Oh, like either it goes both ways. Either, oh, you know, you're too pretty for being like with this. Oh, where do you go with this face to talk about this? It's always very disgusting, and it happens to everyone, but especially with like a special, you know, will to hurt you, to women, I think. So thank you for bringing that up. I am sure that many of our participants have experienced that as well, sadly. Okay, but then, so we need to like cheer up a bit, because we need to go to our Q&A session, and then this is the time, you know, when we hear what our participants have to say. And not only do we hear them, we interact with them. So for participants, well, first of all, reminder, so hashtag, our hashtag, I see a lot of you are using it already. For those of you who haven't, hashtag Huawei for number 4, her. Huawei for her. And then we all meet on the online conversation, you know, obviously without insults and so on. This is a very safe environment we have created. So let's do it that way. Okay, so how do we ask questions? So first of all, take your screen out of full screen mode. I want all of you to see the participants list. Yeah, okay. And then when you see the participants list, immediately below, there is a button that says raise hand, right? So those of you who want to ask a question, it can be a question, it can also be a comment. Here we are very much open for comments, your views, your ideas, whatever you want to share. Please click the raise your hand button. And then when I give you the floor, and here I will have to say your name. So obviously, if you have a nickname, if you have joined with something like, I don't know, iPhone, whatever, then I don't know what's your name. I'm going to call you iPhone. So if possible, change your name beforehand. And if not, then just say your name, please, and your organization once you formulate your question, so that we can know who are we talking with. Also, don't forget, this will be nice to do, to turn on your camera when you ask a question, so that we also, you know, can see, we can interact better in that way. Okay, so I see here, we can maybe start with Celia Arroyo Lopez. Celia Arroyo Lopez has raised her hand. So Celia, please turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, introduce yourself, and there you go. We're listening.
Hi, everybody. I'm very glad to meet you today, mostly knowing that there are some members of the European Commission and Parliament. Now, well, my name is Celia Arroyo Lopez. I'm a doctor in biology, but I am now currently unemployed. Why? Because I dare to report labor abuses in academia. So I'm very glad that today you talked about these practices in academia, and about Carly that told us that sometimes we feel that it's not a healthy environment to work. And I can totally agree with that, because I'm a survivor of bullying in academia. And I made 2 petitions. To be honest, while I was being abused, I wasn't sure about to whom I should contact to, because my project was funded by Marie Curie fellowships, but there were not official institutions to deal with the victims of labor abuse. They were like, obviously, they were asking our supervisor for results, academic results, but not for the working environment or working conditions situation. So I was totally alone, and I made 2 petitions to the European Parliament last year, but I was alone, so I didn't have many social support to make it. About creating organization to prevent labor abuse in academia, because finally most of the projects are funded with funds from the European Union, from our taxes. So to prevent misconducts, and we have to make to improve better practices in academia, as Katia said. And I'm kind of nervous about talking this, because it reminds me my current situation, because obviously my articles are blocked and I'm not welcome in academia, and I love doing science. And so just to start with something very concrete, I would like to ask your opinion. Well, first of all, as a European Union, if you have a notion that this is happening, and it's not only in one country. I was immigrant in both places where it happened to me. None of them were Spain. If you know about the bullying in academia and these misconducts, and what do you think about letter of recommendations? Because I think they use them against us. They can manipulate us, blackmailing us, because I'm a victim of, and I know it happens. Yeah. So I think it's something we have to take away, because it's a very easy.
Okay, Celia,
sorry.
Let me. No. It's. I'm very sorry to hear your experience, because when we were starting the Q&A session, I was saying, okay, let's cheer up, whatever. But then you see, the reality is not as beautiful as we can imagine. From the books even. So thank you for sharing your experience. I think this is a question maybe for Carle or for Henna, but if you don't mind me saying, if you allow me, I will collect, let's say, another 2 questions, and then our speakers can address them in a more, let's say, holistic way, if you allow me, so that everyone has time to ask. So thank you very much for sharing. Maybe Carle and Henna keep this in mind for when you answer. And now I am going to go, I hope I will say the name correctly. I think it's Suvi Korhonen.
Hello, I'm a journalist from Finland for TV and Microbit magazines, which are Computer World Finland and TV World Finland. I'd like to challenge this notion that we should be studying STEM for ICT. I understand that there are like data scientists and many positions that actually need mathematics as background, but then there are many positions in ICT that don't need STEM background, even coding. A lot of people back in the 90s used to be self-taught. They had the hobby background, and today we should persuade girls to study more math. But at the same time, I see a lot of 30-something women who are interested in changing their career. Like they have already one profession, but now they are interested in becoming software developers. There's this new coding school, Hive Helsinki, which doesn't require any previous studies, and it got like 20,000 applications, or people enroll, make the sign up for their system, but 5,000 of them completed the first level of the entry exam. There's a huge interest in trying to become software engineer or developer without having the start. So is there a plan in Finland or in EU somehow to make changing career easier? This could actually boost women in coding a lot. So I guess this is for Henna and maybe all of you.
Thank you so much for your question, Subi. Yeah. So it's about how to make it easier, right, to change careers. Okay, so our speakers will also address this question. As soon as I pick up, there was another person who wanted to ask, but I think she left. Maybe she will come back. Okay, in the meantime, I see here Alina Sebastiuk, probably. Okay, Alina, would you like to introduce yourself and turn on your camera, please?
Greetings from Ukraine. We are very privileged to join this very useful and timely discussion. I represent Huawei Ukraine, and I was involved and I'm involved in women economic empowerment for many years. And my question is about three aspects. We raised today an issue of empowerment, and I would like to say that according to all available international researches, women empowerment is the point of growth in any country in a digital era. And I would like to support a question and a comment by Suvi Korhonen just a minute ago about skills and career change. And I'm very happy that our honorable guest mentioned that today was published a new digital education strategy. And my question is the following. Would you comment, each of you, if you think it's relevant, what could be done additionally about the awareness, to organize an awareness campaign about new opportunities in career in a digital era? Because many of former bankers or women in banks don't know that their analytical skills could be applicable in many areas, because we deal with data. And this is the first question, on how to raise awareness about new professions, new skills, new trends. The second, it's about procurement. So it's not enough to empower to run business or to become an owner of the business. It's also important to purchase products and solutions. And I know that Finland has done a lot to empower women entrepreneurs. So this is the second aspect. And the third, it's more not a question, it's about survey, an international survey in Europe, maybe Huawei could initiate, about skills in a digital era and new opportunities for equality in the world. So this is just an idea as a follow-up after discussions, because action sounds louder than words, and we could have analytics afterwards. So 2 questions about skills in a digital era, and the second about procurement. Maybe you could comment and support at the European level. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alina. Alina is our colleague. Thank you so much also for asking. As a global company, obviously, you see, we come from all around the world in the end. So greetings to Ukraine. And indeed, that's one of the things that Huawei could and should do. So let's strive for that. I am gonna take a last. Okay, now I see that another 2 people. Okay, this is gonna be the very final 2 questions. There will be no more. And then, because our speakers will have to address them, especially Henna will have to leave soon. So please, let's keep it very, very briefly. I see here, I don't know what's the name and what's the surname, so you will correct me. But I see Neha Misra. Neha. Okay, so introduce yourself, please, with the camera on, and keep your questions super brief.
Hi. Yeah, hi. I'm from India, and I can't start the video because apparently the host is not allowing me. Okay. But thank you so much for the invitation to this event. It's been very insightful. So I am a financial literacy enthusiast from India. I worked at Wall Street in the past, and my question is directed to 2 people. Essentially, one is to Henna and the other is to Katya. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, an important aspect of it is financial inclusion. And, sometimes from my experience in India and the US, I've noticed that sometimes as a minority, it becomes a little bit of a challenge. And the second part of it, when you have kids and you have your family involved, then for women, it's many times career, tends to take a backseat. So, what measures are there which are in place in Finland, which maybe we could probably, intake or, exercise in a developing economy like India, in terms of financial inclusion, and also in terms of, how we can enable diversity, DEI, when we work for, foreign clients, because as a minority and as a woman, sometimes, like Alina said, that, sometimes there's a lot of talk, but not enough action around these things. So two themes. One is the financial inclusion aspect of it, and the other is the diversity for women from minorities. So
okay,
thank you so much.
Thanks a lot indeed for your question. So financial inclusion and also the challenges as a minority, indeed. Okay, so let's take the last question so that our speakers have enough time to answer them. Irina Andreiko. Irina, please introduce yourself, turn on your camera if possible.
I'm Irina Andreyka. I'm from western part of Ukraine, and I'm interested in and working with the researchers, disabled people. And so I've just got such question like, so in digital area, so it's a good way to help those people, especially women who can't, who are disabled in a lot of ways around the world. In which way is the better to help them be involved in so active social and active political life through digital technologies, and maybe maybe with different companies and powers or bodies. So as in Ukraine at present moment, there are not a lot of women in politics and social life, and so it's very interesting to hear maybe just some words, because it's your conference is wasn't touched in this sphere, but it would be interesting to hear this moment maybe. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you indeed. So women and disability, right? This is indeed, you're very right. We didn't mention anything about it, and I actually hope that our speakers can address it. So thank you so much for your question. Now, okay, so let's go very quickly. I think we can make like a tour, right? I think we can start, if you want, with Henna. Currently, we're only addressing the questions, so this will be the replies. But Henna, please let us know if you are gonna have to leave sharp at 2:30, 3:30 for you. I guess it's better that you already answer questions and give your closing statement, and then we bid you farewell and we continue, because I think the other speakers can stay like another 5 minutes maybe on top of, yeah? Okay, so Henna, whatever you prefer, you can either only address the questions or address your questions and do a closing statement, your choice.
Yes, thank you. I think I try to combine all this, because really I have to start voting session at the parliament at 5:30, so I have to finish on that. But thank you for all the important questions and topics you took up. And of course, it was very worrying what we heard from Celia Lopez about the problems you have had with your research at your university, because of course freedom of science is very important value for us in Europe, and of course all the universities, they should take care of that they are really respecting this value. And I think it was very worrying what you told about your experiences, and I think it's important that you are raising awareness of these problems. Suvi Korhonen and also Alina Sevastuk were underlining the role of skills, and also I agree very much about what you said, because I really think that we have seen now that the women's participation is the key also when we are building a successful digital era, that the women's participation is a very important part of that. But really, like Suvi said, digital solutions, they are needed in every sector today, and they will be used by everyone. So therefore it's vital that also those technical solutions, that they are also being made by people from different backgrounds. So even in the same time when we are underlining the role of STEM and ICT experts, it's true that we really need people from different backgrounds, that we can have very good digital services, because everybody are supposed to use them, and we need a lot of creativity there around those ideas. And this is one of I think the main challenge for all the European countries. Like I said, educational system, it's a competence of all the member states. So all the member states, they are deciding themselves what kind of educational system they have. But I think now everybody is facing the same challenge, that when we have these economical problems, that easily the member states, they are cutting from education. And I think it's crucial for our future that we are investing enough for basic education, that all the kids, that they have all the important skills. But it's more and more important also that all the people, they should have the possibility to update their skills and competencies. For example, because of digital economy, it has changed the working life so much. And there, I think the member states, they really need new kind of tools. New commission was, for example, promising that they will, for example, look the possibility of individual learning accounts. And I think it would be a very good idea to pilot that kind of individual learning accounts now as a part of the recovery package, for example, because now when we are going to invest in digitalization in Europe to help the recovery, I think digital skills, they should be one of the areas to where we should invest and give more possibilities for the people on this area. And it's also something that the industry and the business life, they should be more aware that they really need people from different backgrounds and they can really benefit on that. From India, we have had a question about the good practices and examples, maybe what we could tell that how the help women's participation. And I think, of course, Finnish example, and I think in the Scandinavian countries, we have that kind of society that we have been very much encouraging the participation of women to working life for decades already. And important part of that is that we have very good daycare system in these countries, and the taxpayers, they are mainly paying that. So it's very easy for the families to have their kids to daycare. And also education is free for everybody. So we don't have that kind of obstacles than we are facing in many countries, that mainly the females, they are taking care of the kids and home and so on. And in Finland, of course, still it's more women who are doing that. But anyway, we have very good, I think, services from our society, like daycare for the kids, and also the men, they are helping more and more also in the home. So we are more and more equal also now, year by year. And I think also about the disability and the females' participations, I think when we speak about equal opportunities, it really means that we should try to give equal opportunities for everybody. And that means that, for example, we as the decision makers, like I am, when we are making legislation or when we are deciding about budget or funding, we should really pay attention for that are we giving equal opportunities, and how we could promote the participation of different people, and how we could remove the barriers what they have in their life. So I think we should think it always when we are making decisions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you very much. That was I think very complete. You addressed all the questions. Thank you as well for being here with us today. I know you have to go super fast to vote in the e-plenary, right? Now it's the e-plenary. So please do so. Honor our commitment as obviously democratic European Union, and hope to see you in another one of our Huawei for Her conferences. Ciao. I think if you want the rest of the speakers, what we can do, because we are approaching the end of our conference and probably obviously people need to go to continue with the day. If you want, let's also do like Hannah, and let's address both the questions, and at the same time you can deliver your closing statement, and that way we do, 2 things for the price of one. That's probably better. Okay, so Carle, since there were several issues tackling academia, would you like to go now? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think this issue, what I mainly like to comment is related to the need to update your knowledge and adapt to the new situation. We see that some of the jobs are just fading away. Some people are not needed in their jobs, but they have talent, ready-made talent to quite easily turn into another job if they are given suitable tools. And this is a very hot topic in Finland. I think it's also elsewhere. How do we do this? How do we organize this systematically? We call it something like continuous education, and realizing that we are in the world of limited resources, we are limited in what we can do at the university. Our approach to this issue is more to try to integrate it with the existing work we are doing anyway. So we are mainly educating students to become to getting degrees of bachelor and master and so forth. So to change the curriculum in such a way that we are giving up modules which can be also given to others with a degree on different fields. And the last remaining issue then there is like, who is going to pay all of this? And as we see, there are three possible payers for this bill: the person him or herself, the employer, the former or the new employer, or the society, or some sort of a mix of all of these. I think this is what is being negotiated. I think from a looking at this picture, I can see also like a big companies having thousands of people, and the work is shifting to a new direction, and they have the people. So it's also, I think, within the Europe especially and globally also, we are depending more and more of talented people. So if you have the people, don't let them go. Keep the people and make sure that you will educate them to new jobs. And just as a society, we have to negotiate a package which is ready there to provide the education that is needed. So I think this is a hot topic. This is really a hot topic, and I think we are advancing it quickly. There are outside of academia, independent players showing up in this picture, as was asked in one of the questions. There are private individuals and companies trying to come up to this field and give the education, especially in the digitalization, which is something which might be lacking from some of the older personnel. Well, however, I think as a maybe the last comment I'd like to say as a sort of a summary of my all of my feelings is that we need to have the support, the society, the individuals who are aware of this. We need to give the support to the new coming generations. I think this is very much of an issue of how do the young people, how do the young students of today see themselves, and are they free to develop to a more diverse, equal society? And if we are giving the right support in 20 years' time, we are there. I mean, we'd like to be there now, but let's be realistic. If we are there in 10 or 20 years' time, I think we've done a good progress.
Thank you so much, Kalle. Thank you so much, because it's exactly what you're saying, no? Especially you're making a reference to once you have the talent there, and every country has talent, just don't let it go, no? I think we are obviously focusing this conversation on Finland and then on the European Union, but I think now we have people here in the call. We have people from the Western Balkans. We also have people from Ukraine and so on. So I think this is the key principle, right? You have the talent already. Now don't let it go. Give this talent opportunities, right? To contribute to your society and to your development. So like you're saying, we can be there sooner than 20 years if we start working towards that goal. So indeed, thank you so much, Kalle. Now let's go to Katja. So Katja, would you also like to address some of the questions and deliver your closing remarks?
Yeah, sure. I could address questions regarding people with disabilities and also financial inclusion. First of all, it was great to address that also one important diversity aspect is people with disabilities, and we in general don't acknowledge enough how many people, I don't remember the numbers, but in the world have disabilities, and this might actually prevent a lot of people from even accessing events or or digital information. So this is also something that should be considered much more as well and taken into account overall. And this also highlights how, when we're talking, for example, closing the gender gap in technology, we need to remember also the diversity of women. If women have even other diversity aspects, like women with disabilities, there's even more factors that might put them into more vulnerable or difficult position in the working life. This is called intersectionality, and that's why we need to understand that when advancing gender equality in tech as well. And also financial inclusion. It was good mentioning that. It's also one other interest of mine, and I've been writing thesis about financial inclusion actually, and it's closely tied to gender equality and diversity and inclusion in tech industry as well, because the financial industry has a huge impact also on what kind of technology companies are being built, who are the tech entrepreneurs getting funding, and who even have the basics access to finances to think about joining the tech industry or founding a tech company or so forth. So it's very important point. I could talk about that for a lot more, but I think we are tight on time, so another time. And as closing remarks, I would like to say that and encourage us all to think about it, that every one of us can be a change maker. All of us, we can, when we commit to learning about these topics and taking small steps and actions in our daily lives, we can actually, all of us, do surprisingly lot and drive change. And when we all are ready to commit to this journey of advancing these topics and taking small steps in our daily lives, we can actually do a lot. And that's what I believe in. And when we learn about this diversity inclusion best practices, we can not just become better colleagues and build better teams and organizations, but it also helps us to make the world a better place in a way that we are able to solve some of the biggest problems of this planet in a better way, whether it's in climate change, human rights, or other industries. So these are important topics and have a lot of follow-up steps as well when we work on this. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Katja. Thank you indeed for all your great points. Thank you also for talking about disabilities, about intersectionality, financial inclusions. Definitely, these are topics that we should address in another one of our webinars or on-site events. Who knows, if Corona allows us, we will go back to also physical events with all the precautions, of course, because also the idea of these webinars, of these events with the webinars is not so easy to do it. But what we normally do, what we did in March, for instance, is that we create this, very warm atmosphere, very welcoming, and basically after the conference we do some networking in a way that we basically all of us stay in the same room, eating something and so on. And it is very interesting because some people don't necessarily want to ask questions publicly, but they have then the chance to meet with speakers and with other peers, and I think that's quite valuable. So as soon as we can, we will obviously go back to that, because that's also another very important part of this campaign. Okay, so before handing it to Lucia, let me remind everyone, please, you're already doing it, but the rest of those of you who want to comment, or the rest of you who did not have a chance to pose your question, but you would still would like to continue the conversation online, please go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag Huawei for her. So Huawei, then number 4, and then her. Huawei for her. And then I am already reading some comments that I will actually mention when Lucia finishes, because I think they are quite good. And if I see your comments, I might also read them. So please do that while we finish. Okay, so Lucia, you are our last speaker, but because of that, you're even more important. So please answer some questions as you see fit and deliver our last words for today.
It's a very challenging place to be at, trying to find a common thread. But what is kind of feels for me is kind of coming through our interventions and the questions also is the information literacy and the individual empowerment. The capability to swim through all those information out there is the number one skill in the future. And it's very naive to expect that somebody will Google their problem and the best policy or government and state program is gonna come at them, because there's simply too much to be able to swim in that ocean. And so, as we've heard, the intersectionality, for instance, is a very important principle in our equality work, where we're trying to come up with proposals which are not only targeting, for instance, gender equality challenges, but also disability, LGBTIQ, race, and other features that when combined can further add to the discrimination status of a person in the European Union. And so it's a very, very important principle, which then makes it even more complicated for the person to find the best solution for themselves. And so where I'm going to is that it's really the question of the skill of the day that people have to kind of learn, is not to expect to find a government, somebody who will provide them with a service which will, for instance, allow them to reskill and shift their careers, because unfortunately it's very hard to do in this era. And it's the responsibility of each of us to build the puzzle for ourselves, depending on where the weaknesses are in our career story or in our individual situation. And that's where all this work obviously is so important, and also the sharing across the member states, where countries like Finland are lucky enough with the government that you've had, and you can have a prime minister who hosts a press conference just for kids. And then there's countries where there's obviously other priorities on the agenda, also because of the leadership that there is. And so the only thing that we can do as individuals is to show up and try to bring ourselves into the game. And if for instance, the issues of women in tech are close to our hearts, then if we support the women who are around us to step up and get into the sector, then we will earlier see tech for women benefits, having the advanced technology benefiting women in all kinds of life situations, be it in their business or be it in everyday lives, as we very well saw during COVID lockdown, all the additional challenges that come with feminization of certain sectors like healthcare, and the ability or not of women to bring all this together. So I guess that's my final hope, where I would hope that the more we manage to plug women inside into the world which is trying to define the solutions, the more they will be serving the general public, the more we will be, for instance, somebody was asking about procurement, the more we will see gender budgeting and gender factors being factored in how public procurement spending is done, the more we will see smart enough data being collected from the public space so that it informs much better our decisions, the more we will see this kind of sensitivity being felt in the decision making of the justice systems, the police. I mean, every area of the society that we look at, the diversity will simply be embedded in the design of the decisions, and not just, you know, splitting the two parts of the world. So I guess that's my plea, as I already said. Please just try to think about where is it that each of us can be a bigger agent for that change every day, on our own social media, in our own families, or coffee conversations, or empowering the women and men that are around us.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Thank you very much. I think you're making wonderful points, because, you know, I think we can all be like game changers at our own level. So, you know, you don't have to go to, I don't know, Shenzhen or Silicon Valley, or, you know, even Brussels, Paris. You don't have to go there in order to be a game changer or a role model. You can be a role model.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Reminds me of one point, actually, and Sophie's question also already reminded me of the fact that I didn't quite reply to your question about all jobs being IT jobs. Obviously, many people focus on the girls to code and like focusing really on the coding profession, but there's other circles around this where many women are engaged with tech. And if we demystify the profession, the more permeable that world will be for other talents to enter that world. And we don't have to, I believe we don't have to have studied STEM or engineering degrees in order to contribute to advancement of tech for the societies. Just look at me of having worked on data for policy or tech regulation at the European level without having had the degree. I think there's multiple examples out there, and the more we remove that veil of how women create, in this case, their careers, the more attractive it will be for any girl out there in the street.
Yeah. Indeed. And like we were all saying, so you can be a role model, you can be a game changer first in your family. You can be a role model for your sister if you have some, for example, for your nephews, for your mom. This also happens, it goes from generations top down, but it also goes bottom up. You can be a role model and a game changer in your office, in your workplace, just by also trying to, whether you're a man or a woman, by promoting other female colleagues and so on. There are a myriad of examples how we can make a change. So now let me close, just because we have already, we are like 15 minutes behind schedule. You will excuse me for this. Next time we will try to finish on time. But I wanted to mention a tweet that I saw, and I thought it was actually quite inspiring. It was written under the hashtag Huawei for her by, I hope I will say the name correctly, if not, do excuse me, Jarmo Sareva, I think, Ambassador of Innovation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland. He wrote, "Not only do we need more women in tech, but we need more men in tech who are working towards this goal," right? Which is the point that I wanted to close with, because, for change to happen, like I said before, for change to happen, society as a whole needs to believe in it. All of us, and not only women, need to want gender equality to be a reality rather than something we're just continuously striving for. I will tell you, in Huawei, both female and male executives and employees want this change to happen and are actively looking for ways to promote female leadership at all levels, and most importantly, across all departments. So whether you're a woman, whether you are a man, please always try to make an impact, try to make a change at your workplace, at your university, at your family, among your friends. We can all make a difference everywhere. And with that, I want to thank you again. Thank you very much to all our speakers for joining today, for all the great insights. Lucia, thank you so much. See you in Brussels around. Katja, thank you as well. See you one day when we will be allowed to travel again without so many restrictions, hopefully. And I see you in Finland. And Carle, thank you so much as well. You were our first male panelist. I think your insights have been great. Thank you also for supporting gender equality. And let's all keep striving for a fairer and more equal world. Thank you so much. Have a nice afternoon.